All right, let's imagine this scene together. Two people stand at the edge of a cliff, staring down at the valley below. The view is the same, the landscape identical, the risk of falling equally present. Yet one person freezes in fear, while the other feels a surge of calm confidence, calculating each step, already visualizing how to descend safely. The question is, what makes the difference? Is it courage? Is it experience? Or is it something deeper? Something hidden, something built long before either of them ever stood on that cliff? That hidden force is what I like to call the moats of the mind. Welcome, my friends, to another episode of The Long Game. I'm your host, Nathan, and today we're venturing into the territory of invisible advantages. Not the kind you can measure on a balance sheet, not the kind you can patent, not the kind that competitors can copy, but the kind that lives inside your head, inside your habits, inside the very architecture of how you think. Warren Buffett made the word moat famous in investing. He described how great businesses protect themselves from competition through moats, things like brand power, economies of scale, regulatory advantages, or network effects. These moats keep predators out, preserve profitability, and allow a business to compound wealth for decades. But let's take this metaphor and turn it inward. If companies need moats to survive and thrive, don't individuals need them too? The world today is noisier than ever before. You and I have access to more information, more voices, more temptations than any generation before us. Every day, distractions storm the gates. Short-term fads, shiny opportunities, emotional triggers, they are like invading armies trying to breach our walls. And if you don't have strong mental defenses, you'll spend your life chasing what everyone else chases, fearing what everyone else fears, and burning energy on battles that don't even matter. So, what exactly are these moats of the mind? They are the invisible defenses you build through deliberate practice, through self-awareness, through hard-won discipline. They are traits like patience when the world screams urgency, clarity when everyone else drowns in confusion, emotional stability when panic spreads like wildfire, and perhaps most of all, the ability to endure boredom without abandoning the path. Think about this. Two investors open the same financial report. One gets lost in the numbers, jumping from headline to headline, anxious about market rumors. The other calmly parses the data, filters out the noise, and sees the essence, the real drivers of value. Both had access to the same pages, but only one had trained the mind to extract wisdom instead of distraction. That training, that filter, that discipline, that's a moat. Or consider an entrepreneur building a startup. Every week, fires erupt. A key customer cancels, a supplier fails, a competitor undercuts prices. Most people break under the stress, but a founder with a moat of emotional resilience doesn't crumble. They reframe setbacks as puzzles, treat failures as data, and continue building while others burn out. Competitors can copy features, they can hire away staff, they can raise more money, but they cannot replicate that inner fortress. And here's the beautiful irony. Unlike business moats, which often require capital, lobbying power, or years of customer loyalty, the moats of the mind are available to anyone. They don't require permission. They don't require inheritance. They don't require connections. They require practice, repetition, choices made consistently over time. Every time you choose to pause before reacting, you dig the moat a little deeper. Every time you stick to the long-term plan instead of chasing shiny distractions, you reinforce the walls. Every time you endure the quiet grind when no one is cheering, you strengthen the foundation. These moats compound. Just like a dollar invested wisely can turn into a fortune, a habit of calm reflection can grow into wisdom. A habit of delayed gratification can grow into freedom. A habit of disciplined focus can grow into mastery. Each decision is a drop of water carving into stone, invisible at first, but over time, unstoppable. So why talk about this? Because in a world obsessed with shortcuts and hacks, the true edge lies not in what's quick to copy, but in what's impossible to steal. Competitors can steal your product design. They can reverse engineer your strategy. They can imitate your branding, but they cannot steal the years you've spent cultivating patience. They cannot duplicate the way you've trained your mind to remain unshaken in chaos. They cannot copy the way you see the game from 20 moves ahead, because that perspective was forged in your own lived experience, your own trials, your own reflections. This is why I believe the ultimate moat is not outside, but inside. The fortress of the mind outlasts trends, outlasts bubbles, outlasts competitors. And the good news is, anyone willing to play the long game can build it. So, in this episode, we'll dive deep. We'll explore the kinds of mental moats worth building, from patience and clarity to resilience and boredom endurance. We'll talk about how to train them, how they protect you, and why they create an advantage that compounds across a lifetime. Because when you build moats of the mind, you're no longer just surviving competition, you're transcending it. And that, my friends, is the long game. In the next part, let's start mapping out exactly what these moats look like and how you can begin digging them today. Let's begin by picturing what these moats of the mind actually look like in practice. Imagine walking into a medieval castle. The moat is wide, filled with water, impossible to cross without permission. That moat buys the king time. It gives defenders a chance to prepare, to respond, to repel invaders. Now translate that image into the modern battlefield of daily life. Your mind is the castle. The world outside is full of noise, temptation, fear, and competition. The moat is your discipline, your clarity, your calmness. Without it, any distraction can storm the gates. With it, you stand unshaken while the world churns in chaos. The first moat worth building is patience. Patience sounds so ordinary, so boring, but it's one of the most underestimated superpowers. In investing, patience means waiting years for the true value of an asset to surface. In careers, patience means grinding through years of practice before mastery appears. In relationships, patience means listening longer than your ego wants to. The world moves in bursts, cycles, fads, and bubbles. Most people react instantly, emotionally, reflexively. Patience allows you to step back, to let time do the heavy lifting, to let noise fade and clarity rise. It's like having a moat that keeps short-term enemies away. The second moat is clarity. In a world drowning in information, clarity is priceless.
Everyone has access to data, but not everyone sees the signal within the noise. Clarity is the ability to simplify, to ask what truly matters here. What's the one thing driving the outcome? A business report may contain hundreds of numbers, but clarity focuses on the key driver: cash flow. A career path may have endless options, but clarity asks which one aligns with my values and gives me energy. When you have clarity, you stop chasing distractions. Your moat protects you from confusion because your vision cuts through the fog. The third moat is emotional resilience. Life will hit you. No one escapes setbacks, rejections, failures. But your reaction defines your trajectory. One person takes failure as proof they're worthless. Another takes it as feedback to adjust. That difference, that reframing, is a moat. It's the inner wall that turns chaos into order. Emotional resilience means you bend, but you don't break. It means you recover faster. And recovery speed compounds over time. When competitors quit at the first setback, your resilience keeps you in the game long enough to eventually win. Then there is the moat of discipline. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. And here's the thing. Discipline doesn't look glamorous. It looks like saying no to the party so you can finish the project. It looks like saving when others are spending. It looks like reading the boring annual report while everyone else scrolls social media. But this discipline compounds into freedom. Each small discipline choice is a brick in the wall that keeps impulsive mistakes from breaching your mind's fortress. And perhaps the most underrated moat of all, the ability to endure boredom. Success, whether in investing, career, or personal growth, is rarely a series of exciting fireworks. It is often repetition, routine, slow progress that feels invisible. Most people quit because boredom feels unbearable. But the truth is, boredom is the price of mastery. The investor who reads boring financial statements year after year gains insight no speculator will ever see. The athlete who repeats the same drills daily builds a body that performs automatically under pressure. The writer who produces words every morning, rain or shine, eventually has books that shape generations. To endure boredom is to build an uncopyable moat. Now, you might be wondering, how do these moats interact? Do they stand alone, or do they reinforce each other? The answer is both. Patience without clarity can lead to wasted waiting. Clarity without resilience can collapse at the first obstacle. Discipline without patience becomes brittle and unsustainable. But when combined, they form layers of defense, just like a castle with multiple moats, walls, and towers. Together, they create an ecosystem of strength. And here's where the magic happens. These moats don't just defend, they create offense. Patience gives you the power to wait for asymmetric opportunities, those rare moments where the upside far outweighs the downside. Clarity lets you recognize those opportunities when others are blinded by noise. Resilience allows you to survive the inevitable setbacks while pursuing them. Discipline ensures you follow through. And boredom endurance keeps you grinding until compounding turns invisible effort into visible success. Think of history's great investors, leaders, and creators. Their edge was rarely a secret tactic. More often, it was their inner moat. Buffett's patience in holding positions for decades. Mandela's resilience through 27 years in prison. Jobs' discipline in pursuing simplicity despite pressure for complexity. These moats weren't glamorous. They weren't headline-grabbing, but they were uncopyable, and they made all the difference. And here's the most empowering truth. You don't need to be born with these moats. You build them, one choice at a time, one day at a time. Every time you resist the urge to react instantly, you widen the moat of patience. Every time you strip away noise to focus on the essential, you deepen the moat of clarity. Every time you recover from a setback, you reinforce the moat of resilience. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you strengthen the moat of discipline. And every time you stay consistent through monotony, you fortify the moat of boredom endurance. Over years, these choices accumulate. What starts as a shallow trench becomes a deep moat. What begins as fragile walls becomes an impregnable fortress. And by the time others notice, it's too late for them to catch up, because they can copy your tactics, but they cannot copy your moats. So, as we continue this exploration, I want you to start asking, which moat of the mind am I building right now? And which one needs more attention? Because your external results in wealth, career, relationships, and fulfillment will ultimately mirror the strength of your internal defenses. In the next part, we'll zoom out and see how moats of the mind create long-term advantage in a world of constant disruption, and why those who invest in building them end up playing a completely different game.
Now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. The reason moats of the mind matter so much is because the external world never stays still. Businesses rise and fall, technologies disrupt industries, economies swing between booms and busts. Even social status shifts like sand in the wind. If you build your defenses only on the outside, money, titles, connections, they can all be stripped away. But the defenses you build inside, the inner architecture of patience, clarity, resilience, discipline, and boredom endurance, travel with you everywhere. They compound no matter what the environment is doing. Think of it this way. When an economic downturn wipes out companies, the individuals who survive and thrive are not necessarily the ones with the biggest bank accounts, but the ones with the strongest inner moats. They're calm while everyone panics. They think clearly while others drown in noise. They endure the boredom of rebuilding while others quit in despair. Their moat doesn't just defend them, it becomes a springboard for advantage. Let's take the example of markets. When volatility strikes, people without moats get tossed around like small boats in a storm. They buy high out of greed, sell low out of fear, repeat the cycle endlessly. But the person with patience and discipline holds steady, continues to accumulate, and watches compounding work its magic over years. The difference isn't intelligence, it's mental fortification. It's the moat of the mind. Or think about careers. In any industry, trends come and go. New tools, new management fads, new shiny shortcuts. People without clarity chase every one of them. They scatter their attention, and after years, they wonder why they haven't built depth. But the person with clarity says, "This is my craft. This is my focus. This is my long game." They practice the fundamentals through waves of change. By the time everyone else is burned out from chasing noise, they've built mastery that can't be faked. That's a moat. Let's not forget relationships. In an age of instant messaging and fleeting attention, people without resilience crumble at the first sign of conflict. They walk away when things get hard. But the person with emotional resilience and patience says, "Let's work through this. Let's endure the discomfort." Over decades, that becomes an uncopyable moat of trust and loyalty. And here's a subtle but powerful insight. Moats of the mind are rare precisely because they require invisible work. The market rewards visible outcomes. Society rewards shiny achievements. But moats are dug in silence. Nobody claps when you resist the urge to react. Nobody applauds when you meditate instead of scrolling. Nobody celebrates when you quietly save money instead of showing off.
Yet these unseen acts of self-defense accumulate until one day the difference becomes undeniable. Think about it. When Warren Buffett sits calmly during a market crash, people call him a genius. But what they're really seeing is decades of moat building, decades of practicing patience, of training his mind not to flinch. When Serena Williams steps into a high-pressure match and performs with grace, people see talent. But beneath that talent lies years of discipline, resilience, and the ability to endure the monotony of practice. What we call greatness is often just the public face of moats built in private. Now, why are these moats impossible to copy? Because they are not knowledge, they are transformation. Someone can copy your spreadsheet model, they can mimic your workout plan, they can steal your pitch deck, but they cannot copy the way you've trained your nervous system to stay calm under pressure. They cannot copy the way you've rewired your brain to default to clarity instead of panic. They cannot copy the scar tissue of resilience you earned by living through failures. These are personal, embodied, hard-won, and that's what makes them the ultimate defense. And there's another dimension here. Moats of the mind make you anti-fragile. Most people break when stressed. Fragile things shatter under pressure. Robust things survive. But anti-fragile things actually get stronger from stress. That's what moats of the mind do. Resilience grows stronger when tested. Patience deepens the more you practice waiting. Discipline sharpens each time you resist temptation. Endurance for boredom expands each time you grind through it. The castle doesn't just defend, it adapts, it evolves, it strengthens. So, if you're listening to this and wondering where to begin, here's the truth. You don't need to build all moats at once. Pick one. Maybe patience if you find yourself rushing decisions. Maybe clarity if you feel lost in the noise. Maybe resilience if setbacks knock you down too hard. Choose one and begin digging. Because here's the good news. Once you start, the act of building one moat spills into others. Patience reinforces discipline. Resilience feeds clarity. Boredom endurance strengthens patience. They form an interconnected web of protection. Over time, the castle of your mind becomes less vulnerable to the attacks of distraction, fear, and chaos. You stop playing the same game as everyone else. While the world reacts to every headline, you move calmly. While others burn out chasing trends, you quietly compound. While competitors copy each other's tactics, you're untouchable because your moat is invisible. And that, right there, is the ultimate advantage of playing the long game. The external world will always change, but the fortress you build inside your mind, no one can breach, no one can steal, and no one can copy. So let me leave you with this image. Imagine standing on a hilltop, your castle behind you, the moat wide and deep, the walls high and strong. Armies may march, storms may rage, markets may crash, trends may come and go, but you are protected. You are steady. You are free to play the long game because your defenses are unshakable. That is the promise of Moats of the Mind, and it's available to you starting now. One choice, one habit, one day at a time. This is Nathan, and you've been listening to The Long Game. Stay patient, stay clear, stay resilient, and keep digging those moats, because the strongest defenses are the ones no one can copy.